So the other day, Nisha did a video where she opened the can next to the mic.
Yes.
And it was the worst.
It was the most flaccid thing I've ever heard in a video, yeah. So you're going to try and do a better can opening animation. There we go.
Proper.
Star Wars is a series where literally every single character, regardless of how inconsequential or little screen time they have, generally has a backstory somewhere in Star Wars canon. A fact that makes it kind of weird that Yoda, yes, Yoda, hasn't really had his backstory explained at all, thanks in part to George Lucas being a weird asshole.
Because since Disney have taken over, they've sort of like reset Star Wars, haven't they?
Yes, so when you talk about Star Wars canon, you have the current canon, which is like, you know, the prequels, the original trilogy, I think the Clone Wars TV show, some books that Disney have like, you know, overseen, and then the new trilogy. But then you have something called like Legends, Star Wars Legends. That's the old canon when George Lucas was in charge. And oh boy, is that a mess, because George Lucas didn't give a shit. If you sent George Lucas a check, chances are you could get permission to license Star Wars and write a novel about it. And thanks to this, virtually every aspect of that universe, like, you know, as introduced in the films, has been explored in some way. And as an example of just how, like, you know, ridiculous this gets, consider the book Tales from the Cantina, which is a collection of short stories about every background character seen in the cantina scene.
Every time I think of Cantina, it's...
Would you want me to make that bit just a little bit funnier? Do you know what canonically the name of that kind of music's called in Star Wars canon?
Yes. Oh, it's jizz.
Jizz.
Yeah.
So who doesn't want to like listen to a nice bit of jizz? But we can talk about that because I think this highlights just how ridiculous, like, you know, the Star Wars Legend canon was in regards to just everyone gets a backstory. Because that cantina scene, fun fact, there was no real thought put into the aliens in the background. I think the story goes that they just got the prop guys and said, we need a bunch of aliens to flesh out, like, you know, this smoky bar in, like, you know, this bumfuck nowhere alien planet. Just throw together what you can, and that's what they did. So literally that is just costumes they threw together with what they had, with no thought whatsoever put into it, like, to sort of create any cohesion between it. It's just create a bunch of weird looking aliens, and then a couple of years later, they write a bunch of backstory for them all. And that's I think that to me sums up Star Wars. When it was, like, you know, led by George Lucas, fuck it, it'll do. And then years later, oh bollocks, how do we explain this shit? And that to me is hilarious. And I kind of wish he was still in charge, because when he was in charge, anything he farted out instantly became canon because the universe existed in his head. And now it's Disney. Obviously, everything has to be, like, you know, committee approved. And it reminds me a lot of like J.K. Rowling, where no one can stop her. And I bet Warner Bros are really trying to, because she just comes out with the most insane bullshit, just at random. The one that was most recent, that is funny, is someone just asked J.K. Rowling, what did wizards do before plumbing? And she went, oh yeah, they used magic to just like vanish their shit away. So wizards would just shit on the floor and then use magic to just make it disappear. And that ruins the universe, because obviously you've got people like Death Eaters and Voldemort who think they're the superior race when they're sat there shitting on the floor and magicking it away with a stick, while humanity, this supposedly inferior race, have developed, like, you know, clean water technology and plumbing.
I just love the idea, like, Voldemort, the ultimate, like, villain. Just, oh, hold on.
Yeah, just popping a squat and taking a shit in his big fucking dumb robes that presumably got, like, covered in shit when he tries to wipe his ass, man. Because you know what? It's so stupid.
So Yoda doesn't have a backstory then?
In the current canon, no. And in the Legends canon, only a little bit. And so little is known about, like, Yoda's backstory. And remember, this is a character who was like 900 years old before he died. So he was around for a very long time, presumably did a lot of cool shit. Very little has been revealed about his early life. We know about his early adventures, but we know almost no biographical information about Yoda, including where he was born and what race he is.
There's something not right here.
What, you don't know what race he is?
Yes, so in a universe where everything's got backstory, we don't know what species of alien Yoda is, and up until the prequels, so bear in mind, it was like 10, 15 years between them. There was like a few like extended universe nods to Yoda's like species. We never saw another example of his race until I think there's one on the Jedi Council. It's like a female Yoda.
Afraid, are you?
No, sir.
And we have to say female Yoda because we don't know what the name of the species is.
Yeah.
And this is actually quite funny because now Disney is bitten them in the arse. Are you aware of what's going on with Baby Yoda?
Oh, I've seen all like the gifs and memes and stuff going around.
The greatest thing to come out of Star Wars in like the past 20 fucking years is Baby Yoda. But Disney have tried very hard to clamp down on anybody discussing or sharing images of Baby Yoda. Presumably there's a picture right behind me of Baby Yoda. Because he's not called Baby Yoda, it's called like the child or the young one. And do you want to take a guess at why they're so pissed off about people sharing this stuff?
I guess it's just because they think it's Baby Yoda.
Yes, and that's the problem because we don't know what species Yoda is. Obviously, people just see that and say, it's a Baby Yoda. And say, no, Yoda isn't the species. Yoda was an example of the species, and now Disney's floundering to deal with this because now people who aren't watching the show think Yoda's in it, but it's set after the original trilogy, after Yoda died.
Yeah.
And it's like a whole mess for the canon because George Lucas never told us what Yoda's species is, so we don't have a name for it. And it's just this whole mess. It's great.
They just dug themselves a hole here, and now they're just like, let's.
Yeah, we have to dig our way out of this hole that George Lucas dug us into. And that to me is hilarious. Obviously, it's Disney and they've got so much fucking money. But they can't stop Baby Yoda because Baby Yoda's too powerful. He's too adorable. Yeah. You must have seen the memes.
I've seen, yeah.
So I don't give a fuck. Disney can't sue. They've already tried to take shit down once. Fuck it. We'll talk about Baby Yoda, man. All the memes of people, I will die for Baby Yoda. And then all the companies are realising, oh, fuck, man. Baby Yoda's the hottest new shit. We need to capitalise. And I think someone tried to put, oh, man, here's what Baby Groot thinks of Baby Yoda. It's like a sad picture of Baby Groot. So it's like, I would use Baby Groot as kindling to keep Baby Yoda warm. My favourite thing about it is, though, that because Disney tried so hard to hide the fact this character was in the show, they made no merchandise for it. And then when obviously the show came out and it's the hottest shit in the world, and it's like this global phenomenon on the internet, they had to rush and they literally just got screenshots that people were sharing for the memes and slapped them on a t-shirt, and that is now official Disney merchandise because they didn't think it was going to be a big deal.
He's like in AEW, the wrestler at the minute. Chris Jericho said something as a throwaway comment.
Oh, a little bit of the bubbly.
Yeah. That's like super fucking huge, isn't it? And didn't they sell official Chris Jericho bubbly?
Yeah, they've literally launched their own bubbly range.
Why would they not? And obviously that's good marketing, capitalising on something that's unexpectedly popular. But we're talking about Star Wars here. I don't know how anyone at fucking Disney looked at this adorable motherfucker right here and went, yeah, let's not make plushes of that.
No.
And I guess the reason they didn't is obviously then the plushes would have leaked me like, well, what's this character? Who is it? And people would have, gone online and speculated. But they're already doing that because we don't know who the fuck Yoda is.
Is there a canon reason to why we don't know anything about Yoda?
Yeah, because nothing is unexplained in the Legends canon. And apparently it's because Yoda himself is, for whatever reason, secretive about his homeworld. And they have throwaway lines in comics and novels and stuff. When people ask Yoda, where are you from? What's the deal? Why are you green and 3 foot tall? And he just says, I don't like talking about it. Or whatever Yoda would say when I can't do the Yoda speech. That's the explanation they've given in the Legends kind of yeah, Yoda just doesn't like talking about it for whatever reason. I'm presuming it's because obviously, say for Yoda, I guess his race is really easy to kill. Because Yoda is a pretty big badass, isn't it?
Yeah. The backflips.
I'm going to guess 3 foot tall aliens are not that hard to just go and kill or steal their shit. So I guess he's doing his species a favour by not telling people where he's from.
Just keep them protected.
Keep them protected because Baby Yoda, you've got to protect them all. Because that's an entire planet of Baby Yodas, man. Imagine that. People would go there and steal them. They're like Furbies. See, people knew about I guess that's what it is. In that universe, if you knew there was a planet of Baby Yodas, you'd go there and have them. They'd be the hottest new shit. Everyone would have one. Yeah, that's the explanation, canon-wise, but the explanation, behind the scenes that George Lucas just didn't want to tell anybody, and we don't really know why.
Is it just examples of George Lucas just being so obtuse about his origins?
Well, there is, yes, and there are stories from behind the scenes and when he was in charge of Star Wars, talking about how he would heavily discourage anyone who licensed Star Wars from exploring Yoda's species as a whole.
Jesus.
And so they weren't allowed to make Yoda toys or figures of other characters that weren't Yoda. Yeah. He discouraged that, and there's also a story about him having an entire run of trading cards pulped because they happen to show on one of them a bunch of creatures who look just like Yoda, like, praying to a statue of a creature that looks like Yoda. So presumably that would have been Yoda's homeworld.
Yeah,
John's like, no, don't put that in. And had that entire run of trading cards pulled. And this is infuriating on its own, but it gets a little bit more annoying because there's no real reason for George Lucas to have done this because he hasn't told anybody why. And the closest he's ever come is like in one interview he had with alongside Hayden Christensen for the prequels.
Yeah.
Where someone just straight up asked him, what's the deal with Yoda? And he just went, well, he's a mysterious character. It's just so infuriating that we don't know anything about the origins of the most famous character in the series. Yoda is the linchpin for almost everything that happens in that series. He's integral to the plot. We don't even know the name of his species. We know the species name of the thing that Luke cuts the hand off of in that the original trilogy.
Yeah.
We don't know what Yoda is, except for calling it Yoda. It's so dumb. I love it. Like a lot of people, I am quite cold on the prequels, but I think over time I've grown to appreciate them as an example of what happens when you give a man who's not very talented or very imaginative just unlimited funds to just make whatever the fuck he wants. And the result is the prequel trilogy. And I love the prequel trilogy just for how dumb they are. And I think there's the really big meme-wise now. I think prequel memes are super huge.
Yeah.
And people are all the lines in those movies are super hilarious and really quotable for how bad they are. My personal favourite just being Samuel L. Jackson going, a Sith Lord? It's really? You had Sam Jackson on set and that's the best line reading you got? You couldn't even let him throw a single motherfucker in there? So do you have any hot takes on the prequels or favourite lines?
I just like the fact that in the episode 1, the Phantom Menace, the battle droids are all very to the wire.
Yep.
Say it as it is, Roger, things like that.
Roger, yeah.
And then in Attack of the Clones, they just humanise him.
Yeah, and it makes no sense whatsoever because that means they've got AI. I noticed that as well, and it makes me feel really uncomfortable when I rewatch Attack of the Clones because the point of adding the robots in is so you don't feel bad when they get cut in half by a lightsaber. They exist for that one reason of we want to see people get cut in half by lightsabers, but we want to keep it PG-13. So fuck it, make them robots. It's like the Samurai Jack method. And why they put robots in Samurai Jack. So you can cut a robot in half and put wires and blood. And it looks like blood, but it's not. Anyway, that's a topic for another day. But when they humanise them, it makes you feel really bad for the robots. There's a bit right at the very start where it's Anakin and Obi-Wan just hacking apart droids, and you actually see one cower in fear as Obi-Wan goes to swing for it. Yeah. And you feel so bad for this robot because it's just it's begging for its life. It's unarmed with its hands in the air, and Obi-Wan just cutting it out. It's these are the villains. No wonder they wanted to take these guys the fuck out. These guys are dangerous. I do like those prequels when they try and showcase how badass Yoda is, and as dumb as it looks, it still gives me that childlike glee of seeing Yoda do crazy ass backflips while flinging a lightsaber everywhere. And when he just catches Force lightning, it's yeah, that's right, I'm a fucking badass. I think in canon they say he can use the Force to augment his physical abilities, but only for a brief time. Before we have to mention my favourite prequel meme, and I've mentioned it in videos before, and I'll mention it every time. It's the great one, I think it's Kit Fisto or one of those weird fishmen. It's a reaction image of him, it's his face in a scream. Where it's just when you're sent to arrest a 400-year-old man who's the emperor of the world, and he immediately does a 360 lightsaber no-scope off the floor. Because that's the first thing he does in the fight. So how are you supposed to take out this man? Just this god, just this emperor of chaos. Because he just does his twirling lightsaber dash towards them. So, Emperor Palpatine, the first person in Star Wars to do a Psycho Crusher. What a ledge.